At first, the Germans didn't take it seriously, calling it a clunker and heavy and slow. But then they heard it before they saw it. A low growl in the night sky, too deep to be a Spitfire, too fast to be a bomber. Then came the cannons, 4 20mm Hispano guns and 6 machine guns, firing in a single devastating burst. To German pilots and sailors, this was the sound of doom. To the British, it was one of the most fearsome aircraft they ever built. Stay until the end to discover how the Bristol Beaufighter, born from spare bomber parts and desperation, became one of the most feared predators of the war, and why soon the Clunker was called a name that still sends chills down the spine. The Whispering Demise, built from desperation. Britain in 1939 was racing against time. The RAF had fighters like the Hurricane and Spitfire, perfect for daylight combat, but it had almost nothing that could fight at night or over long distances. The Bristol Aeroplane Company had an idea. They took their twin-engine Beaufort torpedo bomber, stripped out the bomb bay, added heavy cannons and reinforced the nose. What emerged was not elegant. It was bulky, fast and mean-looking. The RAF called it the Beaufighter, short for Beaufort Fighter. Few expected much. It was heavy, unconventional and hastily built. But what they didn't know was that this improvised design would become one of the most effective multi-role aircraft of the entire war. The Night Hunter. The Beaufighter entered service in 1940, right in the middle of the Blitz. As German bombers raided British cities under cover of darkness, the RAF needed a night fighter fast. Early Beaufighters were fitted with Britain's new airborne radar, allowing pilots to hunt enemy aircraft in total darkness. Imagine it, a pitch-black sky, invisible targets and 2 men in a cockpit guided only by faint green blips on a primitive radar screen. But when contact was made, the results were devastating. The Beaufighter's 4 20mm cannons in the nose could tear a Heinkel or Dornier apart in seconds. In one burst, an entire bomber formation could be shredded. By 1941, the German Air Force's night bombing campaign was being quietly dismantled, one radar blip at a time. The daylight nightmare. But the Beaufighter didn't stop there. As the war expanded to the Mediterranean, the North Sea and the Pacific, it found a new role: to act as a strike aircraft. Flying low over the water, Beaufighters became the nightmare of German shipping. They carried rockets, torpedoes and bombs, attacking convoys from the waves, strafing decks with their cannons. German sailors began calling it Das Monster, the monster, fast, heavily armed and nearly impossible to stop once it began its attack run. In Norway and the Bay of Biscay, Beaufighters decimated U-boat supply lines. In the Mediterranean, they crippled Axis convoys bound for North Africa. And when the Japanese encountered it later in the war, they were not prepared for the devastation it brought. Why Whispering Demise? The Beaufighter's engines were Bristol Hercules radial engines, powerful but unusually quiet at low altitude because of their exhaust design. The plane could approach targets almost silently, especially during dawn and dusk attacks. By the time enemy troops or ships heard it, it was already too late. To Japanese soldiers stationed in Burma and the Pacific Islands, that sudden low hum, followed by the roar of cannon fire, was unforgettable and sent shivers down their spines. The versatile beast. Unlike many aircraft of the war, the Beaufighter served everywhere: Europe, North Africa, the Middle East and the Pacific. It could be a night fighter, bomber escort, anti-ship strike craft or torpedo carrier. In the Pacific, Australian squadrons used Beaufighters to devastate Japanese supply convoys and sunk many ships. Pilots loved its ruggedness. It could take enormous punishment, fly home on one engine, and even land safely after losing a wingtip or tail section. The cockpit was cramped, visibility was poor, and it handled like a truck, but it was brutally effective. The end of the monster. By 1945, the Beaufighter had been largely replaced by faster, sleeker aircraft like the de Havilland Mosquito. But its legacy remained. It had proven that raw firepower and adaptability could win wars as effectively as speed and finesse. From night raids over London to torpedo runs in the Pacific, the Beaufighter served from the first year of the war to the very last. More than 5,900 Beaufighters were built. Many never returned, but their impact echoed across continents. The legacy of the Whispering Demise. Today, surviving Beaufighters are rare, but when one starts its engines, that deep, rumbling growl still sends a chill down the spine. It may not have had the glamour of the Spitfire or the fame of the Mustang, but to those who faced it, whether in the air or on the ground, the Beaufighter was unforgettable. A plane built in desperation, forged in battle, and remembered in whispers. The Whispering Demise. This is a true World War II story because sometimes the biggest underdog can prove himself as a monster in the end. Do you agree? Let us know in the comments and subscribe for more true World War II stories.